Sherri Papini was 34 years old. She lived with her 2 children and her husband, Keith Papini, in a house near the woods in Reading, California. One of Sherri's hobbies was running. It had become an essential daily habit, partly because there was a scenic trail near her home. Sherri would drop the kids off at kindergarten, then take care of household chores, and once everything on her list was done, she would go for a run. On the afternoon of November 2nd, 2016, as usual, Sherri set off on a light jog toward the forest. Earlier, she had told her husband that she planned to pick up the children from kindergarten afterward. When Keith returned home, he expected the family to be there, but no one was in the house. He called Sherri, but she didn't answer. Then he called the teachers, who said that Sherri hadn't picked up the children yet. Keith notified the authorities about his wife's disappearance and immediately began searching for her. Using the Find My iPhone app, he located Sherri's phone. The device was lying right on the forest path where Sherri usually ran, about 1.5 miles from their home. In the same spot, Keith found his wife's headphones. She often listened to music while running, as well as a clump of hair. And that was all. Sherri Papini had vanished. The police began searching. Keith took part in everything, as any loving husband would. He distributed and posted flyers offering a reward for any information about Sherri's whereabouts. But this brought no results. Then Keith turned to the internet, creating a page on a dedicated website, asking not only for help in finding her but also for financial assistance to hire private investigators. Thanks to numerous anonymous donations and one large contribution from an unknown source, Keith was able to raise the reward for any information about his wife to $50,000. It is unknown whether he actually contacted private investigators, as he had intended. He frequently appeared in the media, appealing for help to hundreds of thousands of television viewers. Yet there was no progress in the case of Sherri Papini's disappearance. Through the internet, Sherri's story became known worldwide. On websites from different countries, people discussed and proposed theories about what had happened to her. The theories included that she was kidnapped and sold for sexual exploitation, that she was involved in or witnessed a drug deal, that she happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time, that she encountered a killer who happened to be in the forest, or that she encountered a stalker who was watching her and knew the area was empty and quiet, and that Sherri went there almost every day. Some even suggested shocking theories, such as Keith himself being involved in her disappearance and now raising money to search for the wife whose disappearance he had a direct role in. At that time, no one knew that Sherri's discovery would raise far more questions. On November 24, 2016, around 4:30 a.m., on Thanksgiving Day, 3 weeks after her mysterious disappearance, Sherri Papini was found about 155 miles from her home. A woman, driving early in the morning, saw a frail figure standing on the side of a rural road in Yolo County in Northern California. It was Sherri. She was waving at the passing car. Sherri had handcuffs on her wrists, connected by a chain. Her nose was broken. In some sources, it was mentioned that there was a brand on her shoulder. Bruises and contusions covered her entire body. Her once long blonde hair had been cut off. From this moment, the strange aspects of the case began. It seemed that Sherri would now answer all the questions and finally be able to tell what had happened during the 3 weeks, which had clearly been extremely difficult for her. When she regained consciousness and was finally questioned, Sherri described being kidnapped by 2 Latina women in a dark SUV, both wearing masks. One was about 20 to 30 years old, with curly hair, thin eyebrows, and large earrings. The second was older, around 40 to 50 years old, with straight hair and thick eyebrows. Sherri claimed that they had thrown a tight bag over her head like a sack, shoved her into the car, and drove her to an unknown location. She was completely disoriented in time. She did not know how many days had passed. It seemed that the entire period of over 20 days had merged into one long dark day. The bruises on her body, some already yellowed, others still dark, indicated that she had been subjected to physical abuse throughout her captivity. Yet Sherri did not remember details. In fact, she could recall very little of what had happened over the past weeks. Every word was extremely difficult to get from her. The last thing she could remember was that the kidnappers were shouting angrily in Spanish. Sherri even heard a gunshot. They led her out of a room, of course with her head covered, put her in a car, and then pushed her out onto the road. Sherri did not know what they wanted. The women constantly spoke in Spanish in her presence. The police released composite sketches of the two suspected women and offered a $10,000 reward for information about them, but received absolutely nothing. Sherri could provide no details. The police did not even have a clear understanding of what exactly happened to her during her captivity. Law enforcement is still unsure what led to Sherri's abduction, where she was held for 3 weeks, and most importantly, why she was released. Soon, Sherri Papini, who had been sought worldwide, began to be called a fraud. This started in the media, and then some journalists' opinions influenced public perception. Ken Ariane, an investigator on the case, stated, "In my 25 years, I have never seen a case where someone is kidnapped, held for more than 20 days, and then simply released. It makes no sense." Sergeant Brian Jackson, who had led the investigation from the beginning, expressed a similar opinion. It's hard to hold someone captive for 22 days. Why would anyone do that? What was the goal? Retired NYPD Sergeant and John Jay College criminal justice professor Jody Accolone agreed with Brian Jackson, saying that human traffickers would never release Sherri Papini. The situation became even more confusing when physical evidence, specifically Sherri's clothing, was analyzed. DNA samples were found from an unknown woman and a man, not from two women. The DNA analysis did not match any profiles in the database. The only thing confirmed was that it was not her husband's DNA. Another strange detail was that Sherri insisted she had resisted strongly during her abduction. She claimed to have received a severe cut on her leg during the struggle, but no such injury was found. These inconsistencies between the facts and the victim's statements only increased the distrust. But that was not all. In 2017, it became known that Sherri had been communicating with a man living in Michigan, with whom she had planned to meet. The meeting was scheduled exactly during the time of her disappearance. All these scattered details exposed cracks in the story, which, combined with her lack of clear memories and the strange circumstances of her abduction, led to the idea that Sherri Papini might know more than she was saying, and perhaps even lying. According to the first theory discussed online, it was suggested that Sherri, considered by everyone to be the perfect mother and wife, decided that her monotonous life, where every day was planned out, no longer suited her. She ran away, and then, as it was called, after taking a walk, decided to return, but she did not want to lose her perfect image. It should be clarified immediately that nowhere was it specified what kind of correspondence Sherri had with a man. Nowhere was it ever said that the correspondence was romantic, and if it had been, it would surely have been stated. The man could have been a friend from college or a former work colleague. His identity was not publicly disclosed, but it was established. The man underwent a series of interrogations, and his DNA did not match the DNA found on Sherri's clothing. So perhaps she had run away, but with another man. If this was an arrangement through anonymous messengers for someone to take her into a new life, and then she decided to return to her family, staging her abduction so her husband would accept her, How can one explain that the bruises clearly showed she had been physically abused over a prolonged period? That is, she was subjected to violence almost immediately? She had also been starving for a long time. This means she must have changed her mind almost immediately. So why didn't she return right away? And why endure repeated beatings over a long period if one incident would have sufficed? If we assume she ran away with a man who turned out to be a cruel abuser, why were no signs of sexual assault found? Physical abuse during captivity is almost always accompanied by sexual violence. On our channel, there is a case involving a teenage girl named Jamie Kloss, who, despite being held captive for a long time, was never sexually assaulted. But the physical abuse she suffered had a completely different nature. The second theory is that it was a fraudulent operation aimed at obtaining money from compassionate citizens, allegedly planned by Sherri's husband. But how could anyone know in advance how much public attention a missing person story might attract? People disappear every day. How could one predict in advance that, in addition to small donations, there would be one large transfer? Such public skepticism toward Sherri was fueled by her fragmented memories, deep introspection, and perhaps a reluctance to share details in this situation is entirely understandable. But most likely, Sherri's memory genuinely contained gaps. There is a widely known phenomenon regarding memory. After traumatic events, not only minor details but even key facts often slip away. To many, it seems impossible to forget such things. Incomplete recollections of a victim are explainable and often inevitable. Sometimes the person cannot even specify the period of time during which the traumatic episode occurred. Following psychological trauma, some people may never forget, while others may never be able to recall. Memory works selectively and unpredictably. Both forgetting and misremembering occur. Sometimes memories are even replaced. Sherri insisted that she received a cut during the struggle with her kidnappers. That's how she remembered it. It might not have happened. Brian Jackson, who led the investigation, also stated that he had no reason not to believe Sherri. He reported that the women gave Sherri clothing, which could have contained DNA from anyone, even people unrelated to the abduction. Jody Accolone, retired sergeant and criminal justice college professor, who had claimed that human traffickers would never release Sherri, also noted that such a scenario could occur if the kidnappers were inexperienced, which is possible in any case, though he had never encountered it. Perhaps Sherri was being held in anticipation of a deal, intended to be sold as a sex slave. The deal did not happen. Most likely, the conditions from one side or the other were not met. Then the kidnappers faced a choice: kill her or release her. Demanding a ransom may have seemed too risky, and they simply did not know or could not find other buyers. But neither of the kidnappers was ready to commit murder, or perhaps only one of them. The women argued constantly. Presumably, their arguments determined Sherri's fate. Since the kidnapped woman did not see their faces and did not know where she was, a miracle occurred. She was released. What happened to Sherri is considered extraordinary among similar crimes, which is why it sparked so much debate. But perhaps it really was a unique case. It is frightening to imagine what Sherri went through, only to face accusations over the most traumatic experience of her life. All kinds of sins were attributed to her. Her husband, Keith Papini, fully supported her, telling the media and conspiracy theorists, "Rumors, assumptions, lies, and hatred are exhausting. They are disgusting. These people should be ashamed of their cruel, inhuman behavior. We will not let them take away our love and joy, because our dear girl has been found alive." In March 2017, new information emerged that turned the case on its head. making it harder to justify Sherri. It was revealed that 13 years before the abduction, Sherri's mother, Loretta Graff, had contacted the Shasta County Police in December 2003. Sherri had been harming herself and blaming her mother for it, threatening to involve the police. Loretta's reports are recorded in a police report, which contains only 2 sentences. It does not indicate whether evidence was found that 21-year-old Sherri had actually harmed herself. Sheriff Pat Croffler spoke with both mother and daughter. Loretta Graff's report was one of several. In 2000, Sherri's father, Richard Graff, claimed that his daughter had robbed him. That same year, Sherri's sister, Sheila Kester, contacted the police after discovering that the back door of her home had been broken into and someone had been going through her belongings. She suspected Sherri. The reports do not include details of arrests. Pat Croffler stated that he could not provide further details because the investigation was ongoing. Currently, the entire family is on good terms, and neither the parents nor the sister comment publicly. These facts prove nothing but add a new layer of doubt. Sherri's abduction now seems more like a desperate attempt to attract attention. Again, is it really possible to torment oneself in this way? There is another fact that, according to online speculation, may have inspired Sherri. If true, it is frightening to imagine what was going on in her mind. Sherri remembered how her classmate had been searched for by hundreds of people. She wanted the same. On August 22, 1998, 16-year-old Tyra Smith, dressed in a tracksuit, disappeared 4 kilometers from the location where Sherri later vanished. One could speculate that traffickers of attractive young girls and women with light eyes and hair were operating in the area. However, the time gap is too long to rule out that a new group later came into operation across the state. In any case, to this day, the Sherri Papini case remains unsolved. Sherri herself gives no interviews, fully shielding herself from the press, which is hardly surprising.